All right, this is Rich Leifert, the fire chief. Have to get my head straight here for the McMinnville Fire District. I'm going to call this first Board of Directors meeting for the McMinnville Fire District to order. We'll start with a roll call of directors. Director Adam Garvin. Here. Director Raymond Pratt. Here. Director Brian Smith. Here. Director Daniel Sparrow. Here. Director Joshua Trapp. Here. Thank you. Excuse me, just. If we can, we have a pledge of allegiance next on the agenda, and I apologize for the flag placement. I know it's poor flag etiquette, but we have swearing in today, and we're trying to find the best camera angle, so the flags are behind you today. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. For those that are community or citizens here for this evening, there's a sign-in sheet on the table behind you. Please put your name, contact information, and your address on that before you leave. I appreciate it. Thank you very much. The next item on the agenda is changes to the agenda, and there are two additions to the agenda that I will come back once we have a president elected and ask those to be added to the agenda. They are just housekeeping items for appointments, so we can make sure that all the appropriate paperwork is done in the right manner. So when we get back to that with the president in pocket, we'll move back to that agenda. We have not had a meeting, so we have no consent agenda or financial report. At that time, we'll start swearing in of the new board members so they can actually start doing business. We'll start with Director Garvin. I'll read the portion that's been produced by the county clerk, Carrie Hinton, and then I'll ask Adam to take the oath of office. I'll finish that. This is certificate of election. Carrie Hinton, county clerk of Yamhill County, does certify the special election held on Yamhill County on the 16th day of May 23rd. Adam Garvin was duly elected to the office of McMinnville Fire District Director with a term beginning on or after July 1, 2023. The oath of office.
I, Adam D. Garvin, have been duly elected to the office of McMinnville Fire District Director. Do solemnly swear that I will support the Constitution of the United States of America, the Constitution of the State of Oregon, and the laws thereof, and I will faithfully and honorably perform the duties of Director to the best of my ability. Thank you, Chief.
And I will sign over, get them back to me, and we'll verify those later.
All right, thank you.
Next on our list, Brian Smith. You have a copy of your oath?
I do.
All right. I'll go from here then, since we're dealing a long distance on this one. Carrie Hinton, County Clerk of Yamhill County, does hereby certify the special election held in Yamhill County on the 16th day of May 2023. Brian Smith was duly elected to the office of McMinnville Fire District Director with a term to begin on or after July 1, 2023. And Brian's oath of office. Please go ahead, sir.
I, Brian Smith, having been duly elected to the office of McMinnville Fire District Director, do solemnly swear that I will support the Constitution of the United States of America and the Constitution of the State of Oregon and the laws thereof, and I will faithfully and honorably perform the duties of Director to the best of my ability.
Congratulations, Brian.
Thank you. Thank you, Chief.
Scott. Daniel Sparrow. I'm just going in the way they're handed to me, so I won't. Carrie Hinton, County Clerk of Yamhill County, does hereby certify the special election held by Yamhill County on the 16th day of May, 2023. Daniel Sparrow was duly elected to the office of McMinnville Fire District Director, with a term to begin on or after July 1, 2023.
I, Daniel Sparrow, having been duly elected to the office of McMinnville Fire District Director, do solemnly swear that I will support the Constitution of the United States of America, the Constitution of the State of Oregon, and the laws thereof, and I will faithfully and honorably perform the duties of Director to the best of my ability.
Josh Trapp. Carrie Hinton, County Clerk of Yamhill County, does hereby certify that the special election held by Yamhill County on the day of May 2023. Josh Trapp, duly elected to the office of McMinnville Fire District Director, with a term beginning on or after July 1, 2023.
I, Josh Trapp, have been duly elected to the office of McMinnville Fire District Director. Do solemnly swear that I will support the Constitution of the United States of America, the Constitution of the State of Oregon, and the laws thereof, and I will faithfully and honorably perform the duties of Director to the best of my ability. Thank you, sir.
Ray Pratt. Carrie Hinton, the County Clerk of Yamhill County, is hereby certified that at the special election held in Yamhill County on the 16th of May of 2023, Ray Pratt is duly elected to the office of the McMinnville Fire District Director, with a term to begin on or after July 1, 2023.
I, Ray Pratt, having been duly elected to the office of McMinnville Fire District Director, do solemnly swear that I will support the Constitution of the United States of America, the Constitution of the State of Oregon, and laws thereof. I will faithfully and honorably perform these duties of the Director to the best of my ability. Thanks, sir.
I'd like to give a hand for the board. We have a certificate of election that we have to fill out and return, and district update information. We'll take care of that at the end of business. It basically asks for corrected contact information or any emails, or make sure we have you accurate in the county clerk's reports. And we can do that administratively post meeting. Next item up is election of board officers. This way I can take the business of the board off of me and I can just be the staff support. That would be very nice. So at this point in time, the board has a decision to make, two decisions to make. One is to nominate and elect the board officers. One of the items that we need to make a decision on as a board, or you need to make a decision on as a board, if you want 4 positions on the board, or if you want to run the secretary treasury as a joint position. I believe I touched on it in the narrative a little bit. One of the will nominate the president, and elect the president will nominate and elect the vice president. And then the board can make a decision on whether or not they want to have a secretary and a treasurer, or a secretary treasurer. It's up to the board. In larger organizations, they tend to blend the secretary treasurer into one role because you have staff support to handle a lot of the work that they would do in a smaller organization. But that's not my recommendation. It's just up to the board to decide what they would like to do as far as the secretary and treasurer work does. Secretary usually is primary over the minutes and has some other responsibilities. Treasurer reviews the financials before they come to the board and that kind of work. And those things can happen with one board member or 2 board members. But let's start with the nominations for president. Brian, did I see a hand pop up there? Are you making a nomination, or was that a?
I would like to make a nomination. I would like to nominate Adam Garvin as president of the McMinnville Fire Board.
Do we have a second?
I second that.
So Brian first, Josh seconds. I'll ask for call the question. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Adam Garvin is successfully elected the first president of the McMinnville Fire District. Congratulations, Adam. I will pass the weapon of choice. And we're on to the vice president.
I'd like to nominate Brian Smith for vice president.
I'd like to second that.
Seconded by Adam Garvin. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, that's unanimously passed. And now I'll let Adam take over the meeting and move into the decision on secretary treasurer or secretary treasurer.
All right, first, I'd just like to open it up for discussion. If anybody has any thoughts on if they would prefer a separate or a joint position, I think that's should be up to us as the board to come to a consensus on before we get to voting in one person or two people. Is there anybody with thoughts on that?
I like the joint position. Secretary treasurer.
You like a joint?
Yeah, I think it ends up working better, especially when you decide to spend money or do something. And the secretary, you know, if you have to go to two different people and find out, or if somebody can't make the meeting, if it's that one person, that one individual, I feel like it's easier to control.
Okay. Josh, any thoughts?
No, I'm for it. Secretary Treasurer combined.
Smitty, any thoughts?
Yeah, I see value in having the positions separated, but I'm hearing from the other directors, and I think having them combined would work well also. And if there's someone who would like to do both those roles, that'd be great.
Yeah, I would share Director Smith's thoughts that, you know, I thought we maybe would separate them, but it's really up to you three individuals, and if you guys think you have bandwidth to do it as a joint position, I think that would be more efficient to Sparrow's point. So if that's something that you guys can move forward with, then we can have it be a joint position.
I'm not sad either way, but
It'll just create a little bit more work for that one person.
Yeah.
Director Smith and I already have our workload figured out, so.
So with that being said, as far as a joint position, I mean, I don't know what your lives entail, but would it be better separated and having it as far as the workload?
Workload would be lighter with it separated.
think there's gonna be much workload. Probably gonna be.
A lot of minutes
Yeah.
for the amount of meetings we're gonna have to start.
Yeah.
I would imagine.
Why don't we try separating it? If that's not working out for us, we can later join them.
From a legal perspective, Truman, could we join them down the road if we wanted to? Like a year from now at our next annual meeting,
Yes,
or are you like setting up a charter right now by this initial vote?
no, there's no, so the city has a charter adopted by the voters. Special districts are governed by the statute, so it's not that way. You would just create a position, but the board could always change it at any time by action of the board in the same way that you're setting it up now.
Okay. Was that, you guys want to start them out separated and then we can always join them later?
Yeah, I do.
Sounds good.
With that, I'll open nominations for secretary.
I'll nominate Ray Pratt for secretary.
Second.
Ray, would you like to accept that nomination?
Sure, why not?
All right, so Commissioner, our Director Trapp is nominated Ray Pratt for secretary and Sparrow is seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries unanimously.
So Pratt is secretary.
And I now entertain a motion for treasurer.
I nominate Josh Trapp for treasurer.
I'll second that.
And I accept.
Okay. So motion by Sparrow, second by Smith for Trapp as treasurer. All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
All right.
Aye.
Aye.
Motion carries unanimously. Congratulations, everyone.
Congratulations to the new board.
Thank you.
Now we have the challenge of identifying the term limits and the board positions that we have to report to the county. So we can identify 3 of these positions were designated a 4-year term and will go out on 27. 2 of those were designated a 2-year term, will go out on 25. The law says do a lot as a way to identify those positions. So we've developed a method to do that for you. We have a list that was produced by the county, which I don't know how it was done or not, that we can go for by drawing a lot. We also have poker chips with a 1 through 5 on them. 1, 3, and 5 would be the 4-year incremental, 2 and 4 would be the 2-year incrementals. Unless you have another way of doing it, that seemed to be the best way we could come up with that seemed to fit the requirement.
Poker chips are drawn from the puke bucket.
I took them out of the puke bucket, so they might have some residual effects of a longstanding old tradition.
I like the poker chip idea.
Poker chip works for me.
Yeah, and before we get to poker chips, is there anybody that would prefer a 2-year term? All right, poker chips it is.
Do you ask Director or Vice President Smith if he has someone he would like to draw and this?
Vice President Smith, do you have
If
somebody
it's-
drawing your options?
If it's convenient, I can draw last and take the remaining chip.
All right.
Go get the chips.
Yeah, it's gonna get him. Stand by, he's running down the Spear Mountain.
Secretary, am I supposed to be taking minutes now?
Yeah, I think so. You might be on.
Donna, is this the recording? Is this something that Ray can take minutes from the recording afterwards, or does he need to be?
And she's taking action minutes and they're going to be timestamped in with the video.
Thank you.
I would just say that until we verify that the mics are picking everything up,
I can take
maybe
notes.
just rough clip notes right now.
Who's the first one on that?
Number 3.
Who's second? Let's start.
Ray Pratt,
4.
Brian is third, but he requested one from the last.
Go last. Okay, so who's next on the list?
Dan Farrell.
I'm fine with that.
2. You want to draw?
Does it matter? You'll need to know what director this is.
So 5, position 5, they have to draw. We have to identify the positions. Vice President Smith, you're number 1, position 1.
Thank you.
Dan Sparrow, position 2. President Garvin, position 3. Ray Pratt, position 4. Forgive my, I worked through the title, but I can't remember. President, you're off and running.
We want to go back to the,
Yeah, number public comment.
all right, at this point in the meeting, we'll open it up for public comment. If there's any members of the public in attendance or via Zoom that would like to speak, now would be the time to identify yourself. We will limit that testimony to 3 minutes per person. Is there anybody in the audience that would like to speak? Scott, is there anybody on Zoom? All right, showing no one, we will close public comment. Chief, do we need to go back to the agenda now to add those items or?
Oh, yes, if you could go back to that, please. Changes to the agenda. We have two, just for staff report, we have two staff reports that require action. Both of them have the motion drafted under the recommendation for the individuals who choose to do that. One is appointing the fire chief as the budget officer for the McMinnville Fire District, so that person has the authority to actually create the budget so that we can do what we need to do. The second action is the appointing the fire chief as the clerk recorder, so I can certify all the actions that are going on today to move that forward.
All right.
And it's by title, it's not by name. So and later on down the road, as the organization develops, if the board chooses to hire a clerk recorder or whatever you want to go for that position, it would be simply changes through your board rules and a motion to correct that appointment at that time.
Yeah,
Correct?
yeah, they should be better, yeah. I'll entertain a motion to appoint the fire chief, the budget officer for the McMinnville Fire District as presented in the memo.
And make that motion.
Motion by Director Sparrow and seconded by Vice President Smith. All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carries unanimously. I'll now entertain a motion of appointing fire chief as the clerk recorder for the board of the McMinnville Fire District as referenced in the memo and add it to the agenda.
I'll make that motion as described.
Second.
Motion by Vice President Smith, seconded by Treasurer Trapp. All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously. I'll now point you to business action items A through F. The first one's gonna be legal services waiver conflict as presented in the packet by Truman and the local government law group. Has everybody had a chance to review their packet materials?
Yes.
Any discussion or questions for proposed legal counsel Truman here? Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion to authorize board president myself to sign the engagement letter and waiver of conflict.
So moved.
Moved by Secretary Pratt. Do I hear a second?
I'll second that.
Second by Treasurer Trapp. All those in favor, signal by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously. Now we're on to item B, resolution 2023-01, a resolution adopting going into the SDIS trust agreement. Open up for discussion. Any questions of staff? Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion to adopt resolution 2023-01.
Make that motion to adopt resolution 2023-01.
Motion 2023-01 is moved by Treasurer Trapp. So here, second? Second. Second by Director Sparrow. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Motion passes unanimously.
Mr. President. Can I follow up with just a quick comment?
Yeah.
Just for those in the audience or those on the internet that aren't familiar with that was just authorizing us to enter into agreements with special districts insurance services. So we can accommodate liability, crime, cyber, and workers' comp for the board itself as it sits right now. And then the remaining amounts of those types of insurances, we'll be working through processes with RFPs to find prices, but we had to get something out of pocket as quickly as we could to ensure the insurance.
All right. So up next, we have resolution 2023-02, which is a resolution adopting the IGA with the city of McMinnville for temporary fire and emergency response services. This was, I would say, mostly the meat and potatoes of our packet initially. At this point in time, I'll call on Chief Wyford and Truman to brief us on anything additional.
I'll defer to the attorney on this one. He's been working this contract with the city attorney.
Okay, thank you, board. So this IGA is the agreement to contract for the new district to contract with the city to provide the interim fire services until the tax revenue comes in and the district can stand on its own. It's written in fairly general terms, really by necessity. You don't want to get into too much of directing how the city performs those fire services. I've had numerous conversations with Walt Gall, the attorney for the city, including again this morning, just talking about some of the changes. I don't think we're quite at a place to adopt it today. There's been some discussion, and I've had with the chief and had with Mr. Gall about maintenance of mainly the real property, this building primarily, but also potentially of the rolling stock apparatus. And we've agreed in concept about having that the city's agreeing to do routine maintenance, which I understand is built in the budget as presented. And there was some discussion about emergency repairs and or consulting with this board on undertaking anything of substance should that come up in that 6 months. So I'm aware that this building has had some challenges, including some recent water pipe bursts and stuff like that. My recommendation to the board, and I think the city will also go along with that, is setting either some dollar amount and or just some general language that says that if there were a need, either an emergency repair or some other system failure that was going to require undertaking repairs within that 6 month period, that there be a requirement that the city and the district board confer and agree on the scope of what those repairs or modifications might be. That way you aren't just turning it over to the city to make those decisions. And frankly, I think the city is not really wanting to make those decisions for this new district during that interim period. So we can either work on crafting that language here at this meeting, or you can give instruction to staff to come back at your meeting next Tuesday to bring some modified language. So that's my recommendation on that. And then I'm also interested in if there was any feedback to the comments that I prepared in reviewing that. If there's any other changes you think need to be made.
I'll just go around directors, start with you, Director Smith. Any comments on the IGA that Truman didn't address already?
Yes, I have just a couple questions. One would be regarding dispute resolution. The language in there talking about going to arbitration. And I wondered if maybe it was assumed, but maybe it'd be a good idea if we added language around the possible step of mediation before arbitration. That was one question I had.
I would always recommend that if a dispute appears to be ripe for mediation, that's a better mechanism to try to resolve differences than to spend the attorney's fees and time in contested matters, whether it be in arbitration or in circuit court.
I would agree, and that was my concern, not anticipating any issues, but knowing the cost of arbitration is expensive, and I want to just make sure that mediation would be an appropriate step if that were the case.
I'll bring back some language making that change.
Appreciate that. And then the other question I had to do with list of assets. Is there a current list of assets? And if so, is that list available to the board? Could that be made available?
We have a current list of assets that can get to the board, yes.
Thank you for that. That's all I had.
Excuse me, Vice President, are you talking, this agreement speaks specifically about the real assets, the real estate assets, not is that what you're talking about?
I'm talking about the real, yes, the hard assets. Yeah.
Okay, yep, yes, I can get that to you.
Thank you.
Well, I do have access to that, but I'm gonna make sure it's clean. But we do have the real estate assets. I have both of them. I can get them out. I just need to make sure we've done some new purchases and transitions of chassis that probably need to upgrade in our ambulance service side of it, but we do have a list of both.
Director Kraft, any? Just maybe some clarification, where it talks about, prior to the receipt of tax revenues, as far as not being able to hire employees. I don't know if you see that part.
So in that case, the discussion was around not having the funds or the insurances or anything in place to hire employees. That the employee group, until transferred to the new district, would have to stay within the city of McMinnville because the resources weren't there to do those things, or things weren't in place to do those.
So just maintain the status quo until
Correct.
then.
You know, I mean, we have vacancies as people come in, we'll hire them.
Okay.
That will still continue to happen.
Okay.
Yes.
I think point of clarification for Director Trapp was that it was more along the lines of us entering into a chief's process why we're in this IGA, and that this board is the one that does the hiring and not the
Correct.
state. Is that true? Legal or?
I hadn't been part of any discussion about that, but we certainly can add some language in there. If you want to carve that out specifically.
Yeah, so from my standpoint, and to build on Director Trapp's comments, was if we're gonna be fully independent by Jan 1 of 24 at the end of this IGA, we need to have the ability to go out for a chief's process internally and external, an HR position internally and external, and account position internally and external. And the way this IGA is currently written, it doesn't appear that we have that capacity to do that.
Can I address it? So one of the challenges you have starting off on July 1st is you have a new governmental agency that has the authority to levy taxes, which you'll do, but those receipts won't come in until essentially November. And so there's fundamentally two options. One, you can get a loan against future tax revenue, which would require the board to adopt a resolution. You'd have to go find a financing entity who would be willing to loan the new district money, which would give you a pool of money to operate until those tax revenues come in. The other option is the option that's been pursued, and that is to contract with the city who's going to essentially fund all the operations of the district until those tax revenues come in, and then you're reimbursing the city for those expenses. So you could look at the city as acting as the bank in that instance, although it's not, apples to apples comparison. You do have some difficulty of the district actually entering into any contracts without having funding currently. So, for instance, you've just hired local government law group to be your attorneys. We understand that we're probably not going to be paid by the district until sometime in November for the legal work that, starts today, because you don't have the funds to pay that. And that's fine. That's understandable. That's kind of how you have to work in these new startup governmental.
Are you concerned about the authority to select the candidate? Is that what you're?
Yes.
So maybe that could be part of the contract.
So, okay, so
Or the,
what
or a different idea.
and I guess for some clarification, I think I heard you asking about like hiring a search firm to conduct the process and such.
Yeah.
So you would have the authority, obviously, to enter into contracts today, which you've already done. You would just have to make sure that that contract has some provision that the payments can occur down the road. So we can carve out the chief in this IGA and the chief's hiring process specifically. And I don't think the city would have any objection to that. I don't think the city wants any role in that process.
So what about the other two positions this district needs? And I mean, we don't really get independent from the city after the 6-month mark if we don't fill those positions.
So you said HR, and what was the other one? Finance.
Finance, accounting.
HR administration and accounting.
And then my other, this is kind of a tangent off of Director Traps, but in respect to our current chief, he still is a city employee and he's 3 months away from retirement, but he also is, I would think should be at the direction of the board and not at the direction of the city. And so I don't see any protections in here for him basically being the voice and the advocate for the district and how we can incorporate that into an IGA.
Okay.
And I don't, getting to sit on both sides of the table, I don't see that being in it, something coming up, but I think that if we're gonna memorialize something in the IGA, that should be in there. That he's at the direction of the district board and not at the direction of the council or the city manager.
So can I suggest that I will craft some language and send it out by email to the board? And now that you're seated, you have to be careful about not holding meetings outside of a public meeting, so we can't have a group email, but I can send it to each board member and you can reply individually to me on any feedback, and then I can incorporate that and come back next Tuesday is the meeting, right? With the updated IGA for you to consider.
So you'll send a blank carbon copy, so there's not a chance for the reply.
Yes. Yeah, I've learned that lesson by going through that process. So yeah, I will BCC to the board and then I'll say, dear board, so you understand that the email came to the full board.
Any other questions or comments?
No.
No.
No, that haven't been addressed.
Pratt?
So until we get this agreed, city, the firemen are still gonna get paid and. Yeah.
One point to note, and this is probably for your note also, is we are paying for services for finance and for HR and some of those things throughout the contract. And part of the discussion with the city was hiring people to take on that load. And there are funds allocated in the city's first half budget, which is our first half budget for that work in those positions, whether it was existing positions or new people coming in to offset that.
Yeah, so if we, to build on that, Truman, if we made that higher and it was within the adopted budget, then we're not really going out for money because we're utilizing the $4.5 million loan from the city that we're already paying interest on from the wastewater fund. Or whatever it was.
Yep, that's what we meant.
Okay. We'll work on that and get you some for your consideration.
Any other discussion on the IGA? So we'll table that for now, and that'll come back to us at our 11th meeting next Tuesday. Next up, we have resolution 2023-03, board authorizing bank account and online banking. I'll refer to Fire Chief Lightfoot on that.
What we have done, we checked with SDIS and saw what the criteria were for local banking establishments for government, and First Federal met all of those requirements according to SDIO and SDIS. We've had contact with them to establish a bank for the new district, bank accounts for the new district. We will be taking some revenues in the door that we will have to allocate because the city does not want to mingle some of the smaller revenues with the larger tax streams or the ambulance revenues. So we needed a bank account to get that set up, and that will be part of the sources that we use to pay. Our GEMT funds will need to go into this account, and there's several other air show revenues from the air show coming up. Those types of things will need to go into this account, and we made sure it met the criteria for the requirement. We made recommendations for signatures and signers. All the board members are signers, all the assistant chiefs are signers. Donna Fleischman, who is our administrative office supervisor and manager, is on there. I am not. The reason I'm not on there is because every time you take somebody on or take somebody off, we got to go through the process. And it didn't make sense to me to have myself be a signer and administrator on the account and then turn around in 2 months and have to go take myself off and put someone else on. So it just seemed more smooth if I just did not put myself on as a signer, or we did not put myself on as a signer. So that was why I'm not on there as a signer or administrator for the account. They also offered and highly recommended using online banking for purposes. Everything we do with the state is through the new government Oregon buys contract site, as EFT transfers back and forth. All of our ambulance payments are EFT transfers, and if we have access to online banking, we can see do immediate work to figure out which accounts are coming from where and which payments are coming from where, rather than waiting for paper documentation and those types of things. So it made sense to me, and that would be my recommendation for the board to move in that direction. So that's what you're seeing in that, the resolution authorizing establishing the accounts, identifying the signers, and authorizing the online banking. There's a question from them.
Can I ask you a question on this?
Sure.
I was curious what the process was used to pick from federal and who else was considered.
Well, we took a look at quite frankly, we took a look at the closest bank that met the requirements for the we did not do an RFP, if that's what you're asking, or a request for quotes. We wanted to make sure it met the requirements for the state law and as far as banking. And we went with one that we had been engaged with, our staff had been engaged with on a previous with a previous district, and had felt we received good service. So that's the reason we chose that bank.
And sir, could I actually get you to state your name and address? Just for the record?
Could you come up?
Randy Johnson, that's what you can do.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Sorry.
So the funds we're getting from the rural board will be going into that account also?
Correct. Yes, the funds from the rural board will get transferred to that account. Those funds from the rural board were not allocated into the loan or the use of expenses. They were left as they were identified by the rural district board before they dissolved. So that would be placed into that account. And then the board would have to make a decision on whether they wanted to invest it in LTIP or other CDs or other mechanisms, is that those funds are reserve account funds and not for a specific purpose that is in the future rather than immediate expenses.
Yeah. Any other questions regarding bank account and resolution 2023-03? Anything from you, Vice President Smith?
No questions, thank you.
Just for clarity, Chief, if we have conflict revenue, but after July 1 of 23 to do this IGA, will that go into that account as well, or is that city revenue?
That will not, the city did not want to set up line items for all those types of things. So it will come into our budget, it will come into our revenues, but they'll transfer it to this account because they didn't want to set up individual accounts for revenues. They wanted just the tax dollars and the ambulance revenues is what they wanted to set up as individual line items within their receipt budgets.
Okay.
So it will be ours.
Yeah.
It'll go to the city by nature of who we have the contract with. I mean, as we transfer and transition into the district and get all of our stuff up and running, we are, my team isn't here right now because they're out working on a fire. But we, as we get set up with the state fire marshal's office, which I believe we already have, is that accurate? And we've got a new FDID number. So as soon as we apply them bank accounts, we'll apply them this bank account and then they will come directly to us.
Okay, so it'll still be district revenue, just for the time being.
It's just how it's funneled.
Yeah.
It's
Hearing no further discussion, I'll entertain a motion to approve resolution 2023-03, authorizing staff to open a bank account and online banking with First Federal and approving authorized signers as listed in your packet.
I'll make that motion as stated.
Motion by Vice President Smith. Do I hear a second? Second. A second by Director Trapp. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion passed unanimously. All right, now we have line item E, which is to establish a regular meeting schedule for our board meetings. Typically, those are done by just not really picking dates, but by picking just a standing day of the month, or a couple days of the month, whether that's, you know, the first and third Wednesday or the second and fourth Tuesday or whatever. I'd entertain any discussion about what works. I know some of us are on shift work, so that's going to be the cycle that we'll just have to work with for quorum and. But is there any thoughts on, I personally have standing meetings, but I'll, kind of fill in, let you guys speak, and I'll be the least picky I can be with regards to my current standing meeting.
When is the volunteer drill day?
Volunteer drill is Wednesday and they have their business meeting the first Wednesday of every month.
Okay,
So I'd like
maybe
to
not.
avoid,
Yeah,
so my thoughts were maybe like the second Thursday.
Second Thursday of every month.
It works for me. I don't have any conflicts.
Director Smith, do you have any conflict with the second Thursday of every month?
No, that works good for me. The only day that does not work typically is Wednesdays.
Okay, so we know Wednesdays are out. What about timing on Thursdays? Is this an evening meeting? Is this a lunch meeting? Is this? We can set the meeting time to whatever we want it to be. The county commissioners meet at 10 a.m. on Thursdays. So I would recommend not meeting probably between 10 and 2. So if we need to attend any of those meetings, we don't have to cancel our meeting.
I could make things work with my schedule, but I would prefer evening meetings to accommodate my work schedule.
Does 6 p.m. work? Is there any
Yes.
feedback on that? Do you guys want anything later, anything earlier?
I'm easy.
6 p.m. work? Yeah, and does that work with legal counsel? Do you have conflicts with that?
No, but I wouldn't anticipate that I would be needed at all of your meetings. Only if there was a specific request or something that was on the agenda that was coming. But we'll work around whatever the board decides.
Yeah, I just wanted to make sure it wasn't a standing conflict.
No.
And then a question I have, at least initially, with how much we have to work through and discuss, should we consider having more than one meeting a month initially? And can we pare that down at a later time?
Schedule. Legal wise, could that be reduced just through board resolution?
Yeah, you can call meetings, under public meetings law, you can call meetings as needed. It's helpful to the public to have standing meetings. It's helpful for you for scheduling those. You need to give at least 24 hours notice before a meeting unless there's an actual emergency. But it probably would be helpful as you try to get this fire district up and running to meet more frequently, I would think. And but what that will take, I would certainly defer to the chief and board. I don't have any input on that.
Vice President Smith, were you able to hear all that?
I can hear that, yes.
So the treasurer Trapp floated the idea of having 2 meetings a month. Spacing wise, probably being the second, fourth Thursday of each month at 6 p.m. And then we could do a work session in between those if needed, or we could do a special meeting if there was some contract that needed to be reviewed that couldn't wait, or we wanted to be briefed by staff on something. Is there any thoughts or conflicts with any of that? Hearing none. I'll entertain a motion to set our standard board schedule as the second and fourth Thursday of every month at 6 p.m.
I'd make that motion.
Second.
Motion by Secretary Pratt and second by Director Sparrow. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
All right.
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously. Item F is letter of appreciation, City of McMinnville and Yamhill County.
Mr. President, we have 2 draft, I believe they're in the packet. We have 2 draft letters that we took the liberty of crafting for the board. Obviously, it's up to the board whether or not they choose to do that, but it was an attempt to send individual thanks and appreciation to both the commissioners and the county staff, as well as the city and the city staff for getting the new district to this point. And just say thank you for all their help and support. So that's what that's the reason that's on the agenda, and that's what we drafted some letters for consideration.
All right. Has everybody had a chance to review the 2 letters in the packet to Board Chair Burschauer and Mayor Drapkin on behalf of the fire board?
Yeah, in the second paragraph, the second sentence, over the next few years, we will increase staff improving fire and EMS response times. So should that just be improved? Over the next few years, we will increase staff, improve fire and EMS response times, and increase the number of improving.
Okay,
I can edit it.
that's more your ballpark than mine, say whatever you say.
Grammatically, it reads correct to me if we switch that to improve.
Yep.
Any other edits? No.
This here, thank you again for you. And County. Thank you again for your. That read.
Thank you for your and the, yeah, it should be your.
Possessive your.
I believe so, in that last paragraph.
You, thank you again for your, and for listening, council. Okay. Okay. Got it.
All right, any further discussion on the letters?
No, looks good.
It's not a resolution, so we don't have to formally vote on it, but I just like to head nod by everybody that we're good to send those and sign those and get them sent off. Thank you. Moving on to other business.
Mr. President, I just want to touch base on those two items before you go into those items.
Yeah.
As we get moving, there will be committees, much like city council and board reports and we'll have our own committees. We'll have our labor management committee. We'll have our I can never remember what it's called, the civil service committee. There'll be our own. So that was what aside the liaison reports was for that section for any committee assignments and those types of things. And then obviously the board information reports are for the board to have their time to share what they're doing and working on or anything that's going on.
Yeah, so just to build on what Chief Leverett shared was, we will, Vice President Smith and I will identify some committee spots we want people to do some work on. I can see one of those being YCOM. I currently sit on the YCOM board for the city, but that will be a substantial cost for us. And so we'll want to make sure that our voice is represented on that and our concerns and, you know, operational wise, that's really handled by the chiefs. But as far as fee structure and fee increases and things like that is more what the board takes care of, or if there's complaints, the director of YCOM briefs us on those and staffing levels by YCOM and things like that. So you want to make sure that 911 calls are getting answered in a timely fashion, getting coded correctly, and things like that. But we also, as a director, need to make sure you're let the chiefs do the chiefs work and we're doing the director work if you're assigned to that position. And then other committees, you know, we'll all be as part of the budget committee when we form one of those over this next year and go out for a formal process for community members, and anybody that lives in the district would be eligible to apply, whether they're in the city or the what was the rural fire protection district. Anybody that's within this new McMinnville Fire District would be eligible for that. As we get moving on in this district, I could see a committee being formed for real estate, identifying call volume and things like that, and work with staff to identify where we want a substation, or also working on apparatus replacement when we get our funds built up and we can afford that kind of thing. So that'll be a light item currently, but that will eventually be somewhere where that we all report out to and keep all of us appeased. And that's how we avoid 0 meeting laws, is because we report it in here and not at barbecues and email chains. After that, we got information only department reports. This is where we typically get briefed by the union, local 3099.
Mr. President, Todd's on.
Do we know what's the current contract through
It's through June
June
of next year.
next year?
Yep.
This is
And
last year.
legal, do we have to renegotiate, or does that continue with the board instead of the city, or how does that?
The contract with the union will have to be negotiated on that transfer. Because it will be a new contract with a new contracting party.
So to build on Director Sparrow's question, the city HR director and the union will meet on the 19th of this month. And then ideally we'd have a work session on the 20th with HR, and she'll be able to brief us on that a little bit more. Time 6 o'clock. 5 o'clock. Is there a time for that?
For the 20th,
Yeah.
I don't know that we
Oh, we haven't said it yet.
I will. And really the local 3099 contract in the fire district would be January 1 to June 30th. And then we would, in that span, need to negotiate that full contract. But as Truman said, when we transition Jan 1, we'll have to have that little transitional contract as well. But sounds like Union President Godfrey's on, so I'll call on Todd to give us any informational items he would like to report from his membership. Live from Montana.
Hey, can you guys hear me okay?
Yeah.
Sorry, I don't have great service. 3099 doesn't have anything for this meeting. Appreciate the opportunity to talk to everybody, especially during formal meetings. And appreciate all the work that you all have volunteered to put in for this, because it's going to be a lot going forward. So thank you for all that. And you'll hear more from us in the future.
And thank you to Local 3099 for making this happen. You guys were instrumental in that. So I know a lot of your membership knows that, but we wouldn't be here without you.
Thanks for that. Appreciate it.
Volunteer President Pete Goodman was here earlier. He's on a stretcher fire right now. When he walked out, he said he wanted us to know that there's currently 26 volunteers. 26 volunteers on the roll, but active. How many active do we currently have that consistently respond to calls?
I'll have Chief Anderson step into that question.
Probably 15 to 20.
Okay.
It kind of, we go on roller coasters.
And then Chief Hanfender Lifer, Fire Chief's report.
So for this report, I had hoped, I think I still have Ty here, yeah, okay. I had hoped that I could just have each of the assistant chiefs and Donna just kind of give a little bit of background on what they do, where they're at, what their responsibilities are, and what they're engaged in as far as moving this new organization forward. And just take a few minutes of time, if you don't mind, just so you have a chance. For those of you that don't know them, don't know their role, let's start with Chief Hannafin as the ops chief.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for a little bit of grace while I left to help out a bit. So my name is Amy. I've been with the organization about 22 years. I know some of you know my background, some of you don't, so I'm just gonna give the broad overview. I started as a volunteer. I had the opportunity to be a student through an intern program and then work my way up as firefighter medic, up to where I'm at as the assistant chief currently of operations. I've been in this role about 4 years. That means I got to see us through COVID and through some kind of interesting times as far as policy development and implementation went. I've had a lot of opportunity to help out with the consolidation study and the process, stepping in at a good time to be able to coordinate and take on some of the project coordination through not only the feasibility study and then also the district formation. Currently, I oversee the 3 shifts. So we have A, B, and C shift. They work 24/48. I supervise the battalion chiefs. Each of our shifts have tasks or roles that they take on to help keep business moving. So A shift is the facility shift, and B shift is our vehicle or fleet shift. And C shift takes on all of our EMS supplies. We also have C shift help out with some of the health and safety initiatives, our annual physicals and the safety committee. I also oversee any regulatory licensing to keep operations flowing. So currently through this process, I'm working on transitioning everything over from City of McMinnville to the district for OHA EMS licensing. We're fairly well wrapped up on that, and we'll be ready to move forward with some of the Medicaid and Medicare number procurement here pretty quick. I also had the opportunity a few years ago to serve as the interim chief in Dundee on contract from McMinnville. I am currently a director with the Oregon Fire Chiefs Association and then immediate past president with Women in Fire. So step back a bit from that role to help out here a bit more locally.
Ty, if you could come up to the microphone.
Good evening. How you guys doing?
Good.
Ryan, can you hear me? Or Director Smith, can you hear me?
I can hear you loud and clear. Thank you.
I just want to give a brief introduction to myself here. I've been with the district for 6 months. I was hired January 9th. The newest member of the management team. I came from Tualatin Valley Fire and Rescue. Served there for just under 15 years. Staffing wise, I want to give a brief update on, I manage the fire prevention division. Currently, we have 2 full-time employees, myself and our deputy fire marshal, Steve Candela, who's actually working that fire right now. We also have a volunteer fire inspector. She donates her time 1 day a week. And we also have a small cadre of volunteer public education staff that help out with public education events, community service type events. A little bit about fire prevention, and I think you guys got some of it in the exhibit, but I'll touch on it as fast as I can here. We have 4 components of what we do. We do code enforcement, new construction, fire investigations, and education. On the code enforcement side, I like to say what we do is maintenance inspections. We're out inspecting existing occupancies in the community. Right now, we have just a shade under 400 inspectable occupancies. We have more structures than that in the city, but those are the kind of the higher hazard identifiable structures that we look at. And those are out where we go out, write violations if they're found, follow up with re-inspections. On the new construction side, statutorily, we're required to do firefighting access and water supply reviews, and we do that. And on top of that, we also assist the city building department with fire and life safety plan review. So we do what's called, I like to call over the shoulder review, where we help out with the building plan reviewers and the building official when we get mainly for fire and life safety systems. So fire alarm sprinklers, hood suppression, underground fire lines, hydrants, things like that. We're currently in, so I'm giving you guys a brief overview of what's kind of going on. We are in discussion right now about hopefully expanding that role. I've had some really great meetings with the building official and the community development director about the possibility of us taking a little bit more active role, which I think is fantastic. And it could be a future revenue source for us, but nothing's guaranteed. But I just wanted to brief you on that. On the investigation side, we are required by state law to conduct fire investigations of structure fires. We're doing it right now. Currently, Steve and myself are currently certified with DPSST to conduct cause and origin. We also do have access to the state fire marshal's office. We really use them as kind of a backup, but they are available to us if Steve and I are at a conference or not available. We also are, McMinnville Fire District is a member of the Yamhill County Fire Investigation Team. And they're actually one of Chief Lusich is helping us right now on the fire down the road. So we do participate. We helped dig the fire this morning in Dundee, actually, from a couple of days ago. And education. So we are active in the community. We've had a handful of community events that we've participated in this year already. One of the things that we've kind of fallen back on is our time in the schools. Again, I'm new here, so I didn't know the whole story, but we kind of backed out of the schools because of COVID. We've had some preliminary discussions with the school district, and we've committed to getting back in the schools this fall. And so that's promising. And now that COVID's kind of around, but yeah, relaxed. One note on public education, we also just received it's a fire safety house. It's a 38-foot triple axle fifth wheel safety house. It was gifted to us from Tualatin Valley Fire and Rescue. It's currently in storage right now, but we're working on getting a tow vehicle, our old Dodge, and getting a couple of the logos changed, but we're excited to be able to use that in the community. It's a great tool. And yeah, it hopefully should be ready in the fall. Just a brief overview, some of the things that I've been tasked with the district stuff. I was initially tasked with getting the first federal stuff started. So I'm excited to hear that's a route that at least we're looking into or moving forward with First Fed. I've done the preliminary discussions about our PERS transition because we are going to be under new governance. So, PERS is something that we are working closely with Chris Seacrest and payroll to kind of work out some of those details. And then I think there's still discussions with the actuarial liability with the city. So there's more to come on that, but that's something that we're going to have to be aware of. We're also working on the letters of cooperation. So we do by state statute have to have letters of cooperation with the city and county. Those are currently being drafted. And we just finished our letter of cooperation meeting just last week with the state fire marshal's office. So by state statute, we do have to have our agreement with how we provide fire marshal services because we are agents of the state fire marshal, if you will. So that's moving forward. The fire chief and I met with the regional supervisor last week and we're good to go there. And as well as, like Chief said, we did update our FDID. So we dissolved the two FDIDs that were for the city and the rural, and the new FDID is we just received it last Thursday. That's about it. And outside of the fire district, I also I sit on the board of directors for the Oregon Fire Marshals Association. And I sit on their education committee, their fire code liaison committee, and the legislative committee. And I'm happy to be here. That's it.
Hi, I'm Donna Leishman, and I have been with the department for 15 years. I'm the office manager, and I oversee Tony's desk, and she does all the ambulance billing, and I do the accounts payable. I run the scheduling program for our crews and general office things as they come up, liaison for the board. If that's what the chief would like, and just here for admin support.
So Scott Law's not here this evening. He's out doing, important stuff. We'll have him brief the board at the next meeting, just so we can make sure that you met and understand their roles and responsibilities. We've all met, we've had the opportunity to see each other, and you all know that I have been talking about my retirement. So this evening, one of the key things I needed to do was make sure, and I will be handing you my retirement letter, letting you know formally that I'll be retiring October 1st. That will allow the district and the city to coordinate on the process and give 3 months to try and get some time and get the process moving. So there's not a huge gap between my departure and the new chiefs moving into that role. The other thing that what I would anticipate out of the fire chief's report would be things like we sent you today about the 4th of July event. But for the duration of either, it more than likely it'll be a monthly report for the calls and the type of work that we're doing, and the significant projects that are occurring outside the scope of the normal budget actions or board actions that are happening as a matter of policy. We want to make sure that the board is being updated on the things that are going on in the community, the events that we're engaged in and involved with that are going on, like the county fair and the air show, and we have a run going on here in the next week and a half, 2 weeks. A lot of different events that occur in our community that we are going to be tied into. We are currently, because of our new role as a district and my new role, we are transitioning out of the city street permit closure business, and the city is working on shifting that responsibility. I believe it's going. I don't want to speak to where it's going yet, but we are shifting that responsibility from Jenny at the front desk of the fire district to one of the city departments that's primary in the street closure roles. We will still have input on that, but the management of it and the process of that is specific to the city and not necessarily the fire district as a district. The other thing that we are transitioning away from and will be transitioning away from is the city event permits. We will still charge a special inspection fee for going out and managing the event and ensuring that all of the folks have their extinguishers and everything set the way they should be. But we will not be managing the entire 15-page special event permit process. That will be transitioned back to the city here within the next few months also. So those are some of the things that, as a result of the district firing up, we're transitioning some of those things that the fire department has taken care of, as well as emergency management for the city. Emergency management for the city will be transitioning to Public Works. They'll be working through some grant funding through ARPA to pick up a part-time position to pick up the thing. We've already applied for a grant for the city for a new EOP. We did that when we were in transition, so that they'll pick that up and run with that. We will be a part of that because there's still going to be a fire component within the city of McMinnville, but we won't be the driving emergency manager or emergency management coordinator for the city anymore. So that's kind of what's, along with, first time agendas and learning statutory requirements Now we're past the election part. We're learning all new statutory requirements and getting up to speed. We've got a lot of good advice. Both Truman and his folks have really helped us out getting here. The city staff has done a great job as we get into the budget next week. Crystal at the city has done an amazing job of helping us prepare and be ready to move through this transition year. A lot of decisions have to be made, but at the same time, just the work of getting there and with the short administrative staff that we have here at the department. I just wanted to make sure that the board was aware of all of the help that the city staff had done to help us get to this point. So Scott has stepped up. Scott's over here and he's the IT director for the city. He's the one that got us up with actually being able to hear on the video and the sound tonight. So I want to thank Scott and his team for his help, and we have a significant amount of money to transition in the next year within the next 6 months with websites and so far he's done a great job of setting us up with some of the transitional stuff on the city's website, and we're still working on a couple of tweaks, but so we can keep getting the messages out and do the things we need to do on an interim basis until we have our own district stuff up and established. So, and I'll stop with that.
Kudos to Scott and his team. This is the best audio I've heard in here and ever. Good mic choices. Item B is correspondence. I'm
None of this.
not aware of any that we had. Item C is informational items. Not aware of anything outstanding. Then D would be our next meeting. So our next meeting currently is set for next Tuesday, July 11th at 6 p.m. in this room. I will be zooming in from Seattle. Vice President Smith, will you be back in town yet, or are you still going to be in Italy?
I'll be in Italy. I'll be zooming in from Turin.
Oh yeah, that's your 2 a.m. meeting, right?
Yeah, that's right.
And then everybody else is able to be present. Yeah.
Yep. We will get the meeting agenda posted tomorrow so that we have enough announcement out for the public to understand that there's a budget meeting going to be occurring. Obviously, I believe you all been briefed on the nature of the new district and the rules. So it's going to be a modified budget process. But we will get that agenda posted along with any additional items that were into tonight's meeting. So we'll get that posted tomorrow and notified at the newspaper and be prepared to that. And I will send out the revised budget since we had a discussion and have it ready to go. The actual budget will actually be the LB forms. All those other forms I sent you were worksheets that we used to get there to kind of give you some background. So what the budget document itself will be the LB forms as required by state law.
I know that during our training session, Chief, you brought up the importance of coming up with a domain name for the new district. Is that something that we are planning on discussing tonight or next week?
Scott has asked us to come up with some thoughts.
I think probably emailing those independently to Rich so they're not bought prematurely by somebody that's us.
Yeah, exactly right. Yeah, that's where I was going with that. If you have some thoughts.
If you have some thoughts, you could email those to Fire Chief Lifer, and if you have Scott Burke's email, he could probably check them and make sure that they're available.
I can send out a few suggestions too.
Yeah, that'd be great. Just BC, line current copy, yes, so we don't reply all and create a serial meeting.
Yeah, I'll send a Rich.
Yep, I'll take care of it.
What are your thoughts or plans on how we're going to operate looking for a new chief?
So that'd be our next meeting. Tentatively, that's set for Thursday, the 20th, I believe it's Thursday. 6 p.m. with Vicki Hedges, our HR director, and she'll also be able to brief us anything she learned from her meeting the previous night with local 3099. She won't have anything concrete from that meeting, but she can at least let us know where they're at. And I would say how we move forward from that 20th meeting will probably be determined by if we can get this IGA adopted, because once we vote on it, it's got to get voted on by city council. And we both meet on the 11th, so Unless we both vote on it the same night and hoping that nobody makes amendments to it, I don't think. So we would probably have to start that formally start that chief's process at our following meeting after that. Any thoughts on any of that legally? Is that correct?
On which part?
We couldn't enter into a chief's process or contract until we get the IGA adopted, right?
You could. So there's a couple different components. One is just having kind of a discussion about how you want the process to be. And then whether you're going to hire say a search firm to conduct that process or whether the board's going to do it. And then eventually, in order to conduct interviews in executive session, you'll need to adopt a job description and a process in a public meeting. But I think you could do that separate from the IGA. I don't think, since we're going to exempt it all from the IGA, I don't think, unless you're intending to ask for some assistance from the city in that process.
I think Vicky Hedges is a city employee.
And that's funded already. There's allocation of funds for her to assist us with this.
Okay,
And
so we'll probably need, I probably need some more information
Okay.
from you. On
Okay.
that.
And there is allocation of funds for processes, because we knew this was coming down the pipe within the budgeted dollars. Just have to come up with some options through the city's process. I don't know how that ties into the IGA amendments, but
Okay, we'll have to
okay.
have some further conversation about that.
Once chief shores up the 20th with Vicky, we'll get an email to verify, but I hold that date open, and then that following Thursday, the 27th will be our, fourth Thursday of the month, so that's kind of our meeting schedule for July. Anything else for good of the order? Sir, state your name and address for the record and go ahead.
Thanks, Brock, and good stuff out with Portland. And Bill, do you guys have a website for the district yet?
We don't. That's what we were talking about, is that we need to identify a website and buy a URL and get that launched. Right now, you can find fire district information on the city website under the fire department tab.
And will you have individual emails for contacting you as part of the fire district?
But yes,
Separate from others.
yes, once we're live, we will have our own independent public officials contact information. Currently, you can contact me on my public official cell phone, 503-560-8281, or my city email, adam.garvin@mcminnvilleoregon.gov.
And when will this meeting be posted and when will this all happen? Website, the posting of this, all.
Yeah. We gotta land on a URL first, so we just lined out our remaining meetings in July. I would hope by the end of July we've landed on a URL and we can start down that process, but it's not gonna happen tomorrow. Yep. Anything else for good of the order?
To celebrate the new district, I bought a couple pies at Blue Raven, and I went a little later in the afternoon, so the selection was a little thinner than I had hoped. But you're all welcome to buy.
All right. 5:24 on Wednesday, July 5th, our first fire district meeting is adjourned.
Donna, do you have that sheet?
Thank you.